Flight boss, bitch, you know, for sure. You're now listening to the Mind of an Terry Smooth. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And we're going to talk about the breath. The breath. Now, I see that there's a lot of importance put on the breath, and I'm not here to disclose any amount of importance that anyone put on the breath. So, when you guys see me in my passion and things of that nature, don't get the wrong idea and think I'm just trying to destroy something. I understand the importance of something. I just like to reach the root and the cause and the source of something so I can actually see how important it is in the first place. And I like to experience every round for myself. So you see what I'm saying? So, talking about the breath, right, in general. Now, this is a circumstance and a situation where this is a light form. Very light form. So keep that in mind. And when I say light, you can correlate that with weight, or you could correlate that with light spectrums and photons and things of that nature. But regardless of what you're trying to do, it's going to play out in the same energy signature in some way, shape, and form from a fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional aspect. And I don't feel like coming down to 3D right now because I got a other point that I want to make. So I don't feel like coming down to 3D to explain that. So I want to stay where I'm at. So check this out when we're talking about the breath, right? Now, when we're dealing with meditation, right, you'll have a few people that may teach you to pay attention or focus on the breath when you're meditating. Now, listen to the key words. Pay attention. Focus. Now, when you're paying attention and focusing, you're actually defeating the purpose of meditating, because to meditate, you're supposed to cleanse and you're supposed to go back to natural senses. Now, you may be unaware of how to get back to natural senses and forgot how you was coming about from the natural senses because you're taught by other people who's trying to do the same thing you're doing. Because everything that you see is the same thing everybody else see, but you just got people interpretations that may be better than other people's interpretations. So the whole purpose and goal is to create an interpretation, and if your interpretation correlates with the overall interpretation, you will see that manifest in your life in some way, shape, or form. Now, when we talk about meditating, this is where things get tricky when you got people telling you to pay attention or focus on the breath. Because now you're paying attention to something while you're meditating. You're focusing on something while you're meditating. So you're not actually catching the actuality of everything. And since these are light forms, light bodies that's not attached to 3D, it can be perceived as if you're doing something that you're really not. AKA, you could be thinking that you're meditating because you're just purely focusing on the breath, but at the same time, you're still utilizing a thinking or paying attention energy, or a spirit that pushed those kind of energies out first, that made you think or pay attention or focus to something externally first. So this, you have to understand, don't get lost into the scientific terms of nothing and mix it up with no thing. No thing is no shape and form. So that's just your personality or energy signature you go that you based upon what you resonate with, you start to create shapes and forms. And then you start to create the other shit. You see what I'm saying? But for the most part, when you're paying attention, you start to you defeat the purpose, but you may be unaware that you're defeating the purpose because you're paying attention to a body shape or form that's way lighter than something that's in dense that you could focus on at the instant. You see what I'm saying? So when we're talking about breath, things can get tricky because it's a light body. Now, going back to your true self, we're going to get to that also. Also want to break down how ancients seen the breath. Now, since the breath is correlated with the air and things of that nature, and the concepts that's dealing with, when I'm talking about light, you can correlate that to light and weight, or light spectrums and photons. It don't even fucking matter. It's going to play out in the same energy signature. It doesn't matter the circumstance or the situation, right? So now we're talking about something outside of you. You see what I'm saying? Something outside of you. So when you're focusing and paying attention to the breath, in so many shapes and forms that's focusing on something outside of you, so you don't necessarily get the true natures of all of you back. Because as a spirit, you is no thing, no shape and form. And I don't mean it in a scientific form of nothing. You see what I'm saying? I mean it in the form of it's no thing. So everything that it's utilizing is something. So focusing on something, you don't get all the traction back. But since that's such a light body, like focusing on the breath, that's such a light body that you get to get back way more than someone who's focusing on their thoughts and their emotions and feelings. So you see what I'm saying? So since it's really, that's a technique. When someone tell you to focus on the breath, it's really a technique to go into to get something off your mind. But once you master that, then you supposed to, you know what I'm saying, step it up a notch now. You see what I'm saying? You don't actually need that to get things off your mind. So you can start to get the breath off your mind now. You know what I'm saying? But since that's a lot, see, that's a light body going through that realm of reality, you still receive a lot more. Do y'all get me? I don't want to digress on the third dimension right now. That's why I ain't even smoking right now. You know what I'm saying? Now, check this out. When we talk about the breath as far as the ancients seen it. Now, since the breath is correlated with what you breathe in, air, right? So when we talk about air, pardon me, that's a light body. So since this body, at that time, their conscious level couldn't actually fathom, they actually took the consideration that when something is born and take its first breath, this is when life is put into the being. So this is where they start to make a lot of their science and stuff around it, and because they was learning about themselves with a very low conscious at that time. But here's what you need to understand, right? It's in a circumstance or a situation where at that time the breath is just like, they was a little bit right, but here's what they're wrong, because the spirit wasn't that either. Like, what y'all really need to understand is there's really no such thing as the spirit. You see what I'm saying? It's really not even called the spirit. You're just a being. But me even saying you are a being, that's adding a word. And when you add a word, sign, or sigil, you are adding limitations, because you are adding a description to an energy signature that may perceive you. But since you're in a realm of reality where you could perceive things, we give it signs, symbols, spells, spelling, or whatever we have to do in order to understand how that energy is playing out the best way we can see it down in this third. Well, not me, I ain't in this dimension, but for people who can see it in this third dimension. You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind. So really, just in this dimension, the only way I can really explain your true itself, the lightest forms, the lightest bodies, the lightest sigil, the lightest sign, the lightest word, the all the information that y'all try to correlate and the energy that is pointing to, would be the term spirit. But spirit itself don't exist. That word don't exist. That word is just a term to describe what can't be described. That's why I say your spirit is no thing, no shape and form. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's just a state of being, and your state of being has a personality because it's relative to someone else's space. So reason why I say, even if you want to stop calling it spirit, it's your space. This is why you say, I want to be in my own space. Or goddamn, why you all up in my mix? You see what I'm saying? So space becomes something now in its realm of reality, because now you see it's it's individual space within space, because you wouldn't have your own space, let alone with someone else's space. Otherwise, when someone is smothering you, you're going to get tired of that and say you need more space. And and them smothering you might not have shit to do with them on you 24/7 like y'all Siamese twins. You see what I'm saying? So we talk about 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional shit right now. So at this time, at their low conscious levels, they was talking about spirits correlating with the breath. Now, they was a little bit right, because here's the thing. The breath, the air, that's one of the lightest shapes and forms, concepts, or whatever that an unexperienced spirit can take to experience that realm of reality and to die and to be born, aka transform, and have that expansion and contraction, aka experience, in order to create a bigger vessel next time, aka a bigger blood cell or organ or whatever to go into to have that level of experience, aka to go down again and continue that process as a spirit. So the spirit or the being isn't none of these things, but it goes by based upon what you resonate with. So that's not even dealing with conscious. You're building your conscious based upon what you resonate with. And what you resonate with travels you through experiences. And within these experiences, you have an experience, and now you're able to develop information, aka that experience was a light. A light that was there before your light, and then that information, you're able to take that and be aware of that astral travel, aka you just built a new spaceship piece. You see what I'm saying? To go to that astral travel. So now you're familiar with that space. So next time you travel through that space, and if you are amongst others who haven't traveled through that space anymore, you will be who haven't traveled through that space before, you will be seen as a person who is wise or a person who may have knowledge that they don't have. But AKA in the astral realm, you was just in a space and location that they haven't went through yet. Period. You know what I'm saying? That don't mean as a spirit they might have lived longer than you, but just in other spaces and areas. See what I'm saying? That's how you got to keep shit in mind. Shit goes way beyond shit. And I'm about to start saying shit get high. Now, motherfucking, now, the ancients looked at the air. So they used to call all these kind of deities gods and stuff. You had the air god, the water god, and stuff like that. But what they was trying to say is there's an individual spirit. There's an individual space in that location at the time, plan their characteristics out through that shape and form. And depending on what shape and form it was, this is how we calculated what kind of spirit it was. So if it was a spirit of air, and then it was just the spirit of the air in the location that we was in at that period of time, and whatever one was controlling that at that time, if we said it's the air being, then this being probably had a little bit more access than a being that was in a physical form. So you know what I'm saying, we would give it characteristics and traits on what it can do. So a lot of times when you fucking up and going misalignment with the alignments, a lot of times this spiritual being could play through that air pocket and blow some shit away that you trying to manifest in your life that's unaligned at the time because you're not into flight astrology. You see what I'm saying? So this is the shit that they was into at the time. So you have to understand that we're all got the same mind state. They wasn't thinking differently. You just think they was thinking differently. So your mind start to calculate and create logic on that basis. Well, really that now you're lost. You're going down the wrong direction. So that's how the ancients seen the breath. Now, because they're a little bit right, because for the most part, look at it like this, right? A concept, an idea, a thought form, that's the first womb. So one of the first wombs you go into is your parent, which is your father's idea and concept. Once you go into that one, right, you die and transform as that lightly fleshly fluid or whatever that world, that imagination is. So you as no thing, no shape and form, you go based upon what you resonate with. And once you start to experience that light, you go into that light based upon you resonated with it. You wasn't thinking about it being right or wrong yet. You don't got no conscious yet. Conscious come after the fact. You resonate with shit first. We talking about other shit, 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional shit right now. So for the most part, you resonated with, boom, synced the light. Now that first experience is what you created conscious of. So now you're gonna develop your conscious bodies that share the same information and spectrum of that light that was there before you, aka this was your parents, your before you even got into your father's mind. You got into your father's first womb. It's imagination. Now you became a habit, you became a lot of other shit, and you became organs and a lot of other shit, but not became as a spirit. Your spirit was going into forms, living out that experience. Then that experience transformed, that blood cell transformed, aka died. Then something else got born. Then as it from that thing dying, then you as a spirit you have enough information because you had that last experience. So now you have enough information to be able to go into that next form, and then you do that all the way until you come out into the world, to this motherfucking world. You know what I'm saying? You go into the mother, you do that same process, you go into the womb, and then boom, you're able to come out now. It's the same process. So it's almost like the whole your both parents come from the duality world. You start off in a zero circumference, your space, that's your spirit, your space. And then because in your location, would you resonated with in your space, right? Then you became the one, an individual space. Now you became a soul. So you created your first moon, your first Merkaba, your first mom, your first mother. You create your first self ones, right? Now, for the most part, that's like your smokeless, flameless, non-flammable gas, whatever, that you're going to travel through the astral realm with. So it's transparent. So now you become a space within a space, an individual space, an individual spirit, which is a soul, right? Now that's just the one dimension. That's one dimensional right there. So even when it play out in physics, this means very selfish people, or people who just think about themselves. Or if you want to talk about mathematical wise, it would be the dot. That would be the dot right there. You know what I'm saying? The zero is nothing. That is the space. The dot is the one. When you get the line, that's the dot traveling. Now it's two dots now. It's something related just by default. Something related to something. It made something, created out something outside of itself, but it's really itself. But we get into another video. I don't want to start talking about God in that aspect. We're going to talk about this right now. Now, for the most part, you being the one, that's an individual spirit, which is a soul. So now you're traveling through the astral realm based upon resonation, which you resonate with. So now you're searching for the duality. You're searching for something outside of you, something that resonate with what you resonate with, but may have been in that space or location before you, because you know that because you're going to travel there based upon resonation. Boom. But now it's going to play out as a big light. Boom. Now you experienced something. I just called it light, but you experienced something. Boom. Now that first experience, you're able to build consciousness from that, right? So now we get consciousness into play. But now you just really in a duality of things now. You got something to bounce off of. You got something to relate to. You're just not within yourself anymore. You got something to relate and bounce off. This is the duality realm right now. So this is when you go into your first womb. You go into something that did what you did before you. So since you became an individual spirit out of the zero subconscious and became a one, a space within a space, a spirit within this an individual spirit, which is a soul, you have your own individual aspect of this astral travel. You know what I'm saying? So you may got peers and friends next to you based upon positioning and rotation, but that's another video. But for the most part, now you created your first cloth, your first clothing, your first layering, your first light, which is your Merkaba, your moon, your mother, your mom. You created that first, right? Now, based upon you just floating off resonation, you go into something that did that before you, and then that's like be a bigger light or whatever like that. I'm just calling it light, but now you got something to work with and bounce off. Now you in the realm of duality. So that womb you went in now will be like your father's idea and whatever like that, and head and space and concept and shit like that. So then you start to become all the kind of fleshly fluids in your father. That means dying and transforming. You as a spirit going into bodies. You as a spirit went into the first body. That imagination, that's a thought form. Think about the words you're using. Thought form. It's a form. Information. It's in a form of a nation. So it's a nation of forms that you in. And that's why you have to figure it out. You have to go in that figure. And when you get out of it, you'll have an understanding of that form. And you'll be able to not be a fucking reincarnator and be a master incarnator. You see what I'm saying? And go into another form instead of keep going in forms that you have previously already know about and you're already familiar with it. You see what I'm saying? It's like shit going beyond shit. But for the most part, now you're in the realm of duality. Now you're in the realm of parenting. Now you're in the realm of two. Now you're in the realm of going down. Now you're in the realm of density. Now you're in the realm of fluid. Now you're in the realm of vibration. Now you're in the realm of going in. So for the most part, now that you do that all within your father, you do that to the lowest degree, right? Because you go through what created his masculine energy, which was and then that became his spinal cord. So his spinal fluids is what create little men and women, aka the sperm cells within the sperm fluid. These are little men and women, and the sperm fluid is the universe that they are in, living the same way you are living in Earth or this realm that you are in, and you are a bigger blood cell or a bigger organ, but you're still a spirit within that. And I'm trying to get you to understand that. So for the most part, now you was the same way like that within your father, and you didn't went all the way into the universe of the sperm fluid. Now you as men and women are sperm cells in there as little men and women, but each sperm cell has a spirit in it. You have to understand that the sperm cell ain't the spirit. You know what I'm saying? You the spirit is going into that shape and form, living that level of life. Now, once you get exhausted and die, once your father didn't kill you when he blended y'all all together and became harmonious within itself and killed you, now that's a lower body to come into another realm. Now you go into your mother. Remind you, this is all the duality realm. You go into your mother and do the same thing. You see what I'm saying? Now, when you go into your mother universe, you don't look at that any different than the universe you just left, like your father, because this is all the duality realm, right? So it's still that spermal fluid. Now, all the people in that, aka sperm cells in that sperm fluid, y'all all one universe still, because the sperm fluid is the realm that y'all in, the universe or the earth, whatever y'all want to call it. So all y'all one. Now, it's going to be one smart motherfucker who teach y'all all, whatever the Jesus Christ figure there, or the Archangel Uriel figure there, or all y'all messiahs here, or a shout out to all the teachers that's on the internet. All y'all motherfuckers. All y'all are these versions. That's why when I come out of love, I'm saying we're all on one goal, on common pattern. So whoever doing something like I'm doing it, I respect it. So you got one of these motherfuckers, one of these motherfuckers, sperm cells within the whole universe who teach everybody else where to go. Now that motherfucker reached the egg first. Now everybody else is still wandering in that world, still trying to figure out their way. So you think this is a process that I'm talking lostness because the way you look at a day. But a day to you compared to what we was all doing in that aspect, that might have been 100 years. You see what I'm saying? Just you having sex, busting a nut to the cells, that's probably 1,000 years. You get it? So for the most part, now in a circumstance, you're doing the same circumstance again, and y'all playing follow the leader. The first nigga who just reached the A, aka the first nigga who come up with a concept and idea that everybody else can agree with because it correlate with the reality that we are in at the spectrum. So their imagination became the rulership of the imagination of everybody else's. So that become a wait for the water line, follow the leader type of thing, follow to reach the A type of thing. Now here's what you need to understand, right? When everybody who don't reach the egg, right, within the woman, within that mother, after a while, right, y'all are sperm cells within her, but y'all haven't reached the egg to come out in this world. So eventually y'all die. Y'all little people, little men and women that die because the female is going to end up having a cycle or to flesh you out. This is why she get on her period. This is why females are moon. They're the stars, the moon stars, the moms, the mothers, the moons, the wombs, the mom, moo, the moons. You see what I'm saying? Merkaba. The male, the father, the masculine energy is the sun, the sun, the S-U-N, the S-O-N, the star, the sun, the sun's the father. You see what I'm saying? But y'all just mix things up. Y'all crazy. So when she flush out, y'all die same way you see people die now. Now your spirit leave and do the same thing I was talking about in the same spectrum of going into a father. So as a spirit, it has to resonate with someone's idea and imagination that they're doing at the time, whatever their habits is at the time. That would be the next light that spirit go into, and go into that whole process again, go into the duality process again, go into the mother again, and hopefully it's the smartest motherfucker from the last life, and then hopefully it's the smartest motherfucker in the mother life, and then it can reach the A then, and then if not, it's gonna be another fucking spirit that went into a sperm cell, that sperm cell died. This is what you are now. You die, but your spirit go into back to what it resonate with. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, you never reach the third dimension. You stay in that spectrum until you get smart enough. You see what I'm saying? Now, once you get smart enough, you reach the A, and then you could be able to be whole and become into the realm, to the third dimension aspect of that realm. And then you end up doing that same kind of process again in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, and the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a simultaneous type of thing to become whole, but you can actually tap into yourself to remember these kind of aspects. That's why we got charts like Draconian astrology and things of that nature. Even Vedic astrology to a small degree. Draconian go a little back further, but sidereal a little bit there also. So you can kind of see what kind of alignment you had within when you was in 2D. AKA going through your parents' universes, transverses. You see what I'm saying? So this, like, we're in a universe. So we're connecting through this universe because we're unitedly connected. But for the most part, how this universe got created and how we got subjectivity and how everything ain't created from objectivity, everything gets created from subjectivity to be objective, is because, check this out, you have an inner verse, which there's beings within you what creates your transverse. So your inner verse, whatever it would, if you want to show your inner verse, you bring it to your outer verse. Now your outer verse will be your appearance. So you bring your inner verse and express it in some type of way. It becomes your outer verse. Now everybody got the ability to do that. So that creates us being united. So now we got a situation of a universe, and your space and my space is what separates us, and that's what creates space between us. So now that creates a universe. I could take my inner verse, put it on my outer verse, and it travels through the universe, and then it hits your outer verse, and it goes into your inner verse if you choose to resonate with it. If it's something you don't give a fuck about, like, man, fuck that the idea or thought or feeling or emotion, then it bounces off your outer verse. You see what I'm saying? It hits you as a light spectrum, but then it bounces off. It never goes into your inner verse and start to take life and start to fuck with your transverse beings, and y'all go to war and shit, or they have sex and be cool. If they be cool and have sex and shit and have life, that's that, aka it'll play out to you as an energy or a thought that you resonate with. Like, man, I fucks with this. You see what I'm saying? So that's what that means. But yeah, for the most part, then you have to put it to a situation that, okay, this is a universe, so we're within a universe that's doing that as well. So then we get into aspects of omniverse. Y'all can go back to my videos in 2014. I speak about all this, but you know what I'm saying. We talk about the omniverse and the transverse for that. The universe would be the transverse for the omniverse, and you know what I'm saying. But that's getting beyond aspects, because then once we start to talk about things of that nature, we're not actually talking about beings anymore, and you need to start to actually understand that the same way how y'all got calendars and shit down here, or geometric systems, or hermeticism, hermetics and stuff like that. At that point, once you start talk about it like that, you're talking about beings that's in a world that their world is constructed like that. You know what I'm saying? So you're not talking about a whole being, and then I don't even want to get into that 7th and 8th, 9th dimensional shit yet right now. Just look at it like this. When you see your natal chart, the alignment within that circle, that's the way your star is constructed. So when you see shit like the charts, and you see people doing shit like this, like the eye, whatever like that, all they trying to show you is when you're looking at a natal wheel, or you're looking at a geometric circle, or you're looking at a zodiac wheel, or with all these shits that people trying to talk about, right? You are the center. So you gotta look at everything like it's talking about yourself. So if you are the center, when you go up and look up outside, you are that dot in the center, and you're looking at the circumference, the 360 circumference. That's all it's trying to say. This is what you see. This is you. The moment y'all get lost and start saying, no, this is something outside of me, and somebody else is taking this energy to control everybody. No, you just let somebody else take that to control you. Now you influenced in some type of way, whether it's positive or negative, but you got influenced. So you didn't fucked up and lost your own power in some way, in some mechanism. So actually finally getting the breath. This is what you need to actually understand, because this is not even about breath anymore. But look, this is what you need to understand, right? When you're meditating, it's not about paying attention to breath once you reach this level. What it is going back to the natural state. Now, before you even took your first breath, you wasn't breathing. You wasn't even in no realm of reality that had alchemy there for to correlate air to breathe in the first place, for a spirit to take that light body. It might be other realms of realities that spirit take other lighter bodies there that has nothing to do with breath. Y'all need to understand that. But we do need to understand that everything has something to do with expansion and contraction, just not in the way of the realm of reality that you are in at the moment. So now check this out. When you're meditating right now as a spirit, now this is what you have to understand. To take you out of the nature of even paying attention to your breath, and to take you diver and to make you dive more deeper into yourself, is when you are meditating, start seeing how long you can go without breathing. Now you're gonna look, breathing is related to the subconscious realm, but it's still related to the conscious realm also. And the conscious realm came after the subconscious realm. You know what I'm saying? So keep that in mind. But what you need to understand is that's going to tap you into not even thinking about breathing anymore. What's going to happen is, soon as your body needs to grasp for breath, right, it's going to be more tapped into that than actually paying attention to breathing. So you're getting the most crucial of knowledge. It's almost like a filtering system. Instead of just breathing in all the bullshit and information that you naturally would breathe, when you hold your, it's not about holding your breath. It's about not breathing. Breathe all that shit out. Then once you're not breathing, once you get to that state that all your bodies and people in it need that grasp, when you breathe, the chemical and the other spirits that may take those light bodies and forms, it's kind of, you create like a filtering system. Because what you breathe is everything that you need, and it leave off all the shit that may came with it that you may not necessarily need. Because look, when you just naturally breathing, you still breathing in shit that you may not necessarily need, and then you're paying attention to breath. When you get to a state of in need, you always appreciate the first part of getting what you need, and that plays out into every layer of life. So apply that to this. When you're not breathing and you blew all the breath out, then you get to a state, right? And then practice on that. And then it's going to take you somewhere else to the point that you become a breatharian, a motherfucker who don't even need to breathe or eat anymore, or a lightarian, solar being. But before we even get there yet, because I'm going to take y'all to some motherfucking places that I can't even get to yet, but we going to build them spaceships. You see what I'm saying? Because it's there. Now, check this out. Once you get to that, start to practice that state. What's happening is you actually creating the spaceship of your expansion contraction vehicle. So now your expansion and contraction, that ability becomes that much greater. And it's so much knowledge there you receive. And if your mind is clear, the moment you start to interact with the realm of reality and get up and go about your day-to-day, like every day, you will have some hard-ass knowledge. Some knowledge nobody never had in this realm of reality. Like, see, I could just lead you to the water, but you got to learn how to drink for yourself. Once you get there, that's a self-experience. Because I could bring you to where I'm at. In a spaceship, I could drive you to the location I'm at, but you got to know how to deal with the people and learn how to live in that location yourself once you get there. You see what I'm saying? And that's the type of shit I'm talking about. I'm trying to get everybody on. So I can bring you there, but once you get there, now it has to be your own individual experience. And you'll start to see what I'm talking about. You'll start to see exactly what I'm talking about. That and words can't explain that realm. Like, you know what I'm saying? Logic can't explain that realm. It's just self-experiences, and you won't have no choice but to share your experience in some type of other way. You know what I'm saying? Flight boss, bitch, goddamn air.